One minute, Charlie Kirk was standing before a packed crowd, sharing his message, surrounded by cheers and flashing cameras. And the next, he was gone. A single bullet to the neck, a nation in shock, and an investigation that is still far from over. Authorities say the assassin was a 22-year-old named Tyler Robeenson, a young man with no prior criminal record, once described as intelligent, ambitious, even a straight-A student. Yet, within hours, he would become the face of one of the most shocking political murders in modern America. Investigators claim Robeenson confessed in chilling text messages to his roommate. They point to a handwritten note hidden under a keyboard. And they say he left behind the very rifle his grandfather once gave him, the weapon that allegedly ended Charlie Kirk's life. But if the case seems open and shut, think again. The so-called confession is fragmented, strange, and almost too perfect. The investigation has already uncovered hints of possible accomplices, mysterious online chats, and gaps in the timeline that raise more questions than answers. Even the FBI admits, this case is far from solved. So tonight, we're pulling back the curtain. We'll examine the official story, uncover the hidden details, and explore the disturbing possibility that Tyler Robeenson wasn't acting alone. By the end of this video, you'll be left asking yourself, was Tyler Robeenson truly the shooter? Or has the world been given a carefully crafted narrative, with the real story still hidden in the shadows? Because in this case, nothing is as it seems. Before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Tyler Robeenson is guilty? Or is he just a fall guy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And don't forget to hit like if you want the truth about this case to reach more people, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update in this ongoing investigation. To understand the weight of this tragedy, we need to first understand who Charlie Kirk was and why his death sent shockwaves across the nation. Charlie Kirk was more than just a political figure. To his supporters, he was a firebrand voice, a man who spoke passionately about faith, family, and America's future. He was known for his sharp debates, his growing influence among young conservatives, and his ability to draw massive crowds wherever he went. For many, Charlie represented hope for a new generation of political leadership. For others, he was a polarizing voice, someone whose outspoken views made him a target of harsh criticism. On the morning of the shooting, Charlie was preparing to deliver yet another speech, this time at Utah Valley University. Students, families, and reporters had gathered by the hundreds. The auditorium buzzed with energy, applause, and anticipation. To those who were there, it felt like any other event until the moment everything changed. At exactly 11:43 a.m., a single shot rang out. Witnesses described the sound as sharp, immediate, and so close it felt as if the gunman was in the room. Panic erupted. People screamed, ducked under chairs, and scrambled for the exits. And within seconds, the man who just moments earlier had been commanding the stage lay mortally wounded. Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, would later give a heart-wrenching statement. "I lost my husband, my best friend, and my partner in life. Our children lost their father, and the world lost a man who believed deeply in his calling." Memorials sprang up almost overnight. Thousands gathered across the country to honor his legacy, holding candles, waving flags, and sharing stories of how his words had touched their lives. Whether one agreed with him or not, there was no denying, Charlie Kirk's assassination was more than just a personal loss. It was a national moment of grief, confusion, and outrage. But as the nation mourned Charlie Kirk, investigators were already closing in on their prime suspect, a 22-year-old college student named Tyler Robeenson. To those who knew him, Tyler was an unlikely assassin. He was born and raised in Utah, the son of a devout family, described as quiet, polite, and academically gifted. Teachers remembered him as a straight-A student, a young man who had once earned a scholarship and seemed destined for success. Friends say he was intelligent, but also introverted, the kind of person who kept most of his struggles bottled inside. But behind that clean image, investigators say, cracks were forming. Over the last few years, Tyler's political beliefs had reportedly shifted. Once apolitical, he began spending long hours online, diving into forums and private chats that authorities now believe may have influenced him. His relationship with his father grew strained. According to those close to the family, he struggled with identity, direction, and a growing sense of isolation. Then came the morning of July 13th. Surveillance cameras captured a young man arriving on campus in a gray Dodge Challenger. He was dressed casually, a maroon t-shirt, light shorts, a black cap, and sneakers. Investigators allege that this was Tyler Robeenson. They believe he slipped away unnoticed, changed clothes on the rooftop where the shot was fired, and then blended back into the crowd. But the most shocking twist came from Tyler's own family. When early images of the suspect were released to the public, it was his mother who reportedly recognized him first. The anguish of that moment cannot be overstated. Within hours, the family confronted Tyler, and according to officials, convinced him to turn himself in. By evening, the young man once described as quiet and promising was in police custody, now branded the alleged assassin of a national figure. The arrest sent shockwaves, not only through his community, but across the country. How could a young man with so much potential, and no prior criminal record, suddenly be accused of one of the most brazen political murders in recent history? That question still hangs heavy over this case. Was Tyler Robeenson truly the gunman, or just a convenient scapegoat? Because while authorities claim the evidence is strong, the details surrounding his so-called confession raise even more disturbing questions. On the surface, the case against Tyler Robeenson looks airtight. Investigators point to what they call a confession, chilling words, written not on paper, but through a series of text messages to his roommate. According to prosecutors, on the morning of the shooting, Tyler left a note beneath his keyboard. It read like a farewell, referencing his decision to act and pointing to his grandfather's rifle, the same weapon investigators claim was used in the assassination. Hours later, his roommate allegedly received a string of unsettling texts. One message read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Another mentioned the rifle, almost casually, as if Tyler wanted his roommate to know exactly what was about to happen. To law enforcement, these texts are the smoking gun, proof that the young man wasn't just capable of the crime, but that he had planned it, step by step. But here's where things get strange. The texts themselves are disjointed, awkwardly phrased, and almost too perfect in how they incriminate him. Instead of sounding like a natural conversation, they read more like a script. The kind of script designed to make sure no one doubts the sender's guilt. Even more puzzling, there's no video of Tyler actually firing the shot. No eyewitness can definitively place the gun in his hands. What exists is circumstantial: the note, the messages, and the rifle left behind. Strong evidence, yes, but not unshakable proof. Some analysts have questioned why someone so intelligent, a scholarship student with a reputation for being methodical, would confess in such a clumsy and traceable way. If Tyler truly planned the assassination of a national figure, why leave behind an electronic trail practically begging investigators to find him guilty? Others point to the possibility that the texts could have been manipulated, staged, or even taken out of context. After all, in the heat of a case this politically charged, small details can be magnified, or twisted, to fit the narrative. And yet, when confronted with the evidence, Tyler reportedly did not fight. He did not attempt to flee. According to police, he surrendered without resistance, quietly confirming his identity. So the question becomes, were these the actions of a guilty man weighed down by the gravity of his crime, or the resignation of someone who realized he was already trapped in a story bigger than himself? Because as strong as the so-called confession appears, cracks are beginning to show. And those cracks have led investigators to widen their scope, asking whether Tyler Robeenson really acted alone, or whether there is far more to this story than anyone is admitting. If the confession texts and handwritten note painted a picture of a lone assassin, the investigation that followed began to blur the edges of that story. Because almost immediately, things didn't quite add up. Law enforcement moved fast. Within hours of the shooting, federal agents and local police launched a coordinated manhunt. Roads were blocked, surveillance footage was pulled from the university and surrounding neighborhoods, and by nightfall, Tyler Robeenson was in custody. On paper, the case seemed clean, but investigators themselves admitted pieces of the puzzle were missing. For one, the timeline of the shooting was messy. Witnesses said the sound of the gunshot was so sharp, so immediate, it felt like it came from inside the auditorium. Yet official reports insist the shot was fired from a rooftop some distance away. Videos from the audience show people ducking almost instantly, as though the sound came from right above them. If Tyler was truly on the rooftop, why did so many eyewitnesses describe something different? Then there were the digital breadcrumbs. The FBI claimed to have uncovered Discord chats that hinted at extremist discussions, but nothing concrete has been released to the public. Were these real plans, idle talk, or simply guilt by association? And what about the possibility of accomplices? In a rare statement, FBI Director Christopher Wray admitted that investigators were exploring every possibility. That included whether Tyler Robinson acted alone, whether others encouraged him, or whether entirely different players were involved. It was a careful choice of words, and it only fueled speculation. Some independent analysts believe Tyler was far too calm during his arrest. He didn't resist. He didn't deny. He simply went quietly, as though he knew resistance was pointless. To some, this looked like guilt. To others, it looked like a man who realized he had already been chosen as the fall guy. Meanwhile, gaps in surveillance footage have raised even more eyebrows. If Tyler was on the rooftop, why are there no clear images of him preparing the shot? Why are there no eyewitnesses who actually saw him with the rifle in hand? And then there's the weapon itself. Investigators say the rifle was left behind, traced back to Tyler's grandfather. But again, questions remain. Was it truly the weapon used? And if Tyler wanted to escape, why leave such a direct piece of evidence behind? Slowly, the case against Tyler Robinson began to look less like a closed book and more like an unfinished story. A story filled with gaps, contradictions, and disturbing possibilities. If Tyler Robinson really did act alone, the evidence should be undeniable. But instead, each new detail seems to raise more questions than answers. And now, with prosecutors pushing forward and defense attorneys preparing their strategy, the case is heading into the courtroom, where the biggest battle is yet to begin. When Tyler Robinson first appeared in court, the world finally saw the young man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. But what stood out wasn't just his face, it was his silence. Tyler entered the courtroom, dressed in a standard-issue jumpsuit, his wrists shackled, his expression calm but unreadable. There was no outburst, no visible emotion. For a moment, the packed gallery watched in silence, as if searching for some sign of the monster prosecutors described, or the scapegoat his defenders insisted he was. Shockingly, Tyler appeared without a lawyer. For days, questions swirled about how he would defend himself against charges that carried the most severe penalty possible: death. Finally, the court appointed Kathy Nestor, a seasoned defense attorney known for handling high-profile, politically sensitive cases. Her involvement immediately shifted the tone of the proceedings. Nestor's challenge is enormous. The prosecution is armed with text messages that read like a confession, a handwritten note, and a rifle allegedly tied to Tyler's family. On the surface, it looks damning. But Nestor has already signaled that she will fight tooth and nail, suggesting that the so-called confession may not be as straightforward as it seems, and that the investigation itself may have overlooked critical gaps. The stakes couldn't be higher. If convicted, Tyler Robinson could face life in prison, or worse, execution. But if his defense succeeds, the case could collapse, opening the door to an even more unsettling possibility that the real story behind Charlie Kirk's assassination has yet to be told. On one side, prosecutors claim this case is clear-cut, a troubled young man radicalized by politics, leaving behind a digital trail that proves his guilt. The note, the texts, the rifle, all pointing to one conclusion. But on the other side lies a tangled web of contradictions. A gunshot that seemed to come from inside the auditorium. Surveillance gaps that leave key moments unaccounted for. Text messages that sound more like a script than a confession. And a suspect who walked quietly into custody, almost as if he knew the story had already been written for him. If Tyler Robinson truly acted alone, why do so many questions remain unanswered? And if he didn't, then the real shooter or shooters may still be out there. The trial will determine Tyler's fate. But the deeper question, the one investigators, journalists, and ordinary people across the world are asking, is whether the public has been told the full truth. Was this simply the act of a lone assassin, or was Tyler Robinson a pawn in a much larger game? One thing is certain, the case has shaken not just a community, but a nation. And as more details emerge, the line between fact and theory continues to blur. So now, the question isn't just whether Tyler Robinson is guilty, it's whether we've been told the whole story at all. What do you think? Was Tyler Robinson truly the shooter, or just the fall guy in a much bigger plot? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading through them. And don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more deep dive true crime investigations the mainstream media won't show you, because this case is only just beginning.